There you go.
So hello, welcome to our show, A Year of Magical Learning, where we read books, we reflect on it, and we discuss about what we learn. So today we have book 46. Chris, can you tell us what book 46?
You got it. Yeah, book 46. It's called The Four Agreements, A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom by Don Miguel Ruiz and Janet Mills. You guys read this one, either one of you?
No, I've heard about it though.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those like books maybe that was on like Oprah or something like that. Yeah, like took off and became like really popular.
Just because it went on Oprah?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. Oprah
effect. She has some pretty powerful sway over a lot of people apparently.
She does.
But the book at a high level is about it takes inspiration from a set of spiritual beliefs held by this ancient Toltec people, and helps readers to transform their lives into a new experience of freedom, true happiness, and love. Are
the Toltec people like an ancient like civilization somewhere, or?
I think they're like an Indian tribe, and I want to say like Mexico, maybe. I'm not sure exactly. I don't think they go too deep into like the origins of the Toltec people, but basically, according to the author, everything a person does is based on agreements they've made with themselves, with others, with God, and with life itself. And people tell themselves, who they are, how to behave, what's possible, what's not possible. So it's all about the agreements that we make with ourselves, and how to live a life, I guess, with making good agreements with yourself and things of that nature. So my personal reflection, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. My personal reflection title for this one is Words Matter, White Magic versus Black Magic. So the first agreement and the four agreements is always to remember to be impeccable with your words. So like, this has been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the past, couple of years of my life, of the importance of language. Humans are incredible, and we have the ability to imagine and dream up all this, crazy abstract ideas, and they live in our head. But for all we know, like, other animals know how to do that as well. I honestly don't know if my dog is the most brilliant being in the world, right? Like, who knows? Like, she could be over there just imagining, stuff all day, every day, and putting together, abstract concepts, and, just popping out. She's like a doggy Einstein for all I know. I have no idea. But, one of the things that separates us, as we all know, from everybody else, is we're somehow not only able to have that and crazy imagination, but then we're able to put it into words and use those words to communicate to other human beings, to literally take an idea out of your head and somehow communicate it so other people can understand, see it, visualize it, and take that to heart, and create something with you of it. So this book was such a great reminder for me, the power that our words have over ourselves and over other people. And it always, reminds me to always be impeccable with your word, because it matters. Like, that's literally, an idea is amazing, but it doesn't mean anything if we can't communicate it and share it with other people. And we've talked at length about the importance of, humans working together, and, don't do it alone. And that's another reason why we are, who we are as the incredible human race that we've become, is our ability to communicate and to help each other. So black magic versus white magic. The author talks about, when you use your words for good, he calls it white magic, and when you use your words for bad, it's black magic. So it's a good reminder to always use your words for good. And that was an important lesson that I learned from this particular book. So the question I can pose you guys, I'd love to get your thoughts on the book itself, your thoughts on the importance of words and human communication, and then the question that I can pose to the broader group is, how can you use your words to promote more good in this world? So I don't know who wants to go first, but I'll turn it over to you guys.
First question, True. I want to hear from you first. How can you use your words to promote more good in the world?
I think words is one of the tools that we have at our disposal to communicate the ideas. I think the ideas and how we can formulate them and pass it on, that's a superpower. But I don't think word alone itself is supreme, just because you can draw pictures, you can communicate in other ways, whether that's Morse code or whatever the case may be. I think it's a tool that a channel that you use. So it's one of the channel. But I agree in with your reflection title. Words matter because words are your ideas. It's a representations of your ideas, and ideas, because when different word will elicit different ideas. And so if you are not careful with it, it may insinuate something different. And
Right.
when you do that, then people have misunderstanding, and misunderstanding and misinformation is what gets disagreement. And from there you have conflict. And I think that kind of creates the chaos, and the chaos brings pain, right? But your words are going to be either used for good or for bad, because if you use for good, your word transform your emotion, and your emotion transform your action, and your action transform the result. The result is what is either good or bad for the world, right? And so the origin of your idea and how you express it, it is super, super important. So if you're not careful and use it without carefully trying to kind of like decipher which word are better to use, then you may lose the meaning of what you had intended, right? And so
Right.
just like when you have 10 people in line, and you whisper your ideas to one person, that person whisper to the next person, and the next person whisper to the next person. By the time it gets to the end of the person, the 10th person, your idea kind of got, they diluted in some way, completely different from what you had intended. And so that's the reason why you want to use the word carefully, because it's just like copying. When you copy something, right, you only get 97% or whatever percent of the accuracy, and then the copy of the copy is even more less accurate. And so
Right.
if you do that 10 times or 20 times or 100 times, right, what happened to your original versus the one you copy is completely different.
Right.
So I think word matters, and I think, to me, word is one of those neutral, where you can use it for good or you can use it for bad, based on your intent. And I think it has to do with the wielder of the words. And so for me, if you to me, and also like to me, if you say something is good for somebody, it's bad for someone else,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So it's not always black and white, and say, hey, white magic was black magic, because the thing is, to a white person, to a white wielder of magic, right, the black guy is the black magic guy is the enemy, and to the black magic wielder, the white guy is the enemy. So who's right, who's wrong? Right? Because each one of them say, hey, I want to better the world in my own way. You just
Right.
put a label on me and say, hey, I'm the black magic wielder, and versus you're the good. You just self-proclaim to be good. So to me, there's a lot of I guess gray areas that in some of these concepts and ideas that we need to kind of take with a grain of salt, just because not everything is black and white. And I think agreeing your reflection and words matter, and so you got to choose it carefully to, I guess, protect the ideas you want to spread, because you don't want that to change on its own and have its own life, and you have no control whatsoever once you utter the words.
Agree. Yeah, Snow, get in on this. Yeah.
Yeah, true. I like how you talked about how like your words can end up getting misconstrued like farther along the line. Like communicating one-on-one is already hard enough, and there's so much miscommunication that goes on. Because even just like subjectively, what I think something might mean is actually a little bit different than you. So that's why you can also feel like that fewer words is better, because then there's less time or less chance for misunderstanding. It's a tricky balance, because you have to explain yourself, but also kind of the more succinct you can be, and the more articulate you are, it seems like to me it's the better because you won't have as much miscommunication.
Right.
I think that's a really important part that we've been talking about how we communicate to other people. I don't, Snow, to your point and to both of your guys' point, like if you're not impeccable with yourself, with, if you don't understand what you're trying to do yourself and how you want to, like what your North Star is, what your compass, what's the point of the words you're trying to say. If you're just meandering anyway yourself, like you're already starting off with, like it's not, your point's not going to get across. It'll get even worse when it gets put into translation into this world. I think I think it starts with being impeccable with your word to yourself. Like if you say that, and that goes to integrity for me at this point in time. Like I look at my core values and I say, am I living this? Like, is this what I wanted to do? And if it is, then I have the confidence to say, I know how I want to describe this to somebody else. And I know how I want to project what I'm doing and the ideas that come into this world in a deliberate fashion. If I don't use that and I'm just like going off the cuff and, just arguing with somebody, like I'm not being impeccable with my word at that point in time. I'm just talking, and that's where I think, for me, white magic versus black magic comes into play. It's like, I mean, as Drew always makes fun of me. I love to talk. Like that's something that I like. I don't know. It's a supernatural skill for me. I don't know. I just enjoy it a lot. But at the same time, most of my life, I haven't really ever thought about what I was trying to say. It's not that I don't think, it was just that I wasn't being deliberate about what I was trying to say. I think that's been one of the biggest changes over the past couple of years, is trying to be impeccable with your word. What you're saying and what you're doing means something, and to get that point across.
Yeah, because a lot of times, we talk because we want people to sometimes think the same way that we think. We want to be accurate with our words because we want to point out like, hey, that's what that is. That is a white rhino right there. And so that's part of I forget what book I was reading, but it was talking about whether it's you want to have your genes go on so you have people who look like you want to have your words and your thoughts go on so people think like you. And I think that just comes down to just more about this, like the clarity and like the purpose and the intention. And you're right, Chris, you do really need to know yourself about what you want to do and what's your purpose and what's your values. And I think I'm struggling with that a little bit right now because I don't know if my job completely lines up with my values. And it makes me think of the book 7 Habits, putting first things first. And I'm realizing I need to put more things first. Like, do I really like my job? Is my job really something I want to be doing? And I've noticed I can kind of mask it with other things in life to make it more okay. But kind of that same intention with our words and our actions. Because words are really just sort of vocalized thoughts, I guess. So, also being intentional with your thoughts almost. It's being impeccable with your thoughts, and whether that's why meditation or time alone can help, or just or whether it's talking, or whether talking things out can bring clarity. Or
writing, or just
writing. Yeah. So be impeccable with your thoughts almost in a way.
I love that. That's got to be step one, right? You can't be impeccable with your words unless you
you have to understand your thought clearly first before you can transmit, vocalize it in a way for people to understand. Because if they don't understand it and they don't see it clearly, they won't copy and they won't pass it on. So your idea is not gonna go far just because.
And it's got to be something that they feel like there's value in. Right. So whether you're giving directions to Dunkin' Donuts or, directions on how to live a good life. I mean, it comes down to is there purpose in, because we all can feel even in this roundabout chat, we can feel like there's purpose to our words. Otherwise we wouldn't be saying them.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't have written this out. I wouldn't do any of this stuff if I, honestly, writing has been probably the single most important thing for me personally that has helped me to become more impeccable with my word. Right. It's not, something that I think of like arguing a political topic or whatever. Throw me into it, and like I love to engage and I love to argue, and I'll go point for counterpoint just because I love to do it, you know. But like at the end of it, you're probably would just been just as lost as you were when you began on either side of it. Like I didn't have a point. It was more just to get out there and to verbally engage, you know, like it's when you have to take the time to sit down and write, to get your thoughts in order, to like you said, you know, your thoughts need to be impeccable before your words can be impeccable. Like it's easy for me to rattle off all these things as how they relate to my values and my purpose these days, because I've been writing about them for the past 2 years. You know, I wrote a book, I wrote another one. This is, I mean, doing all the writing in the middle of the process, writing another book with this whole entire journey. Like, yeah, I mean, these, like my thoughts have become crystallized through my own words, and then I can more eloquently speak them to you guys, you know, or to anyone else, right? That wants to listen.
Right. So word on paper or on something is what I think that's an important process to solidify your ideas and your thoughts, because thoughts are basically, it's just flying around you in your head, right? And when you talk, right, it's not necessarily going to be in any kind of order or patterns until you can write it out. And so when you write out, you're being forced to pick the thoughts that is flying around and then pin them in the right order, in the right pattern, so that it is understood by some reader. And so I think if you can take your thoughts and write it first, then say it, I think that would make a much clearer, like you want to be impeccable with your words. And I think that's a good process. It's a good, I guess, exercise to follow if you wanna have that result.
Yeah, that's it makes me think about. Oh, Trio, sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I won't.
Okay. I mean, it makes me think of, like, you know, last week, I think we were talking about trees, and you know how a tree is just something like it is where it is. It's rooted. It's been growing slowly. And Chris, kind of like how you talk about with your writing, how you've been like solidifying your thoughts and your ideas and your values all into like this tree trunk almost. It's been growing for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's easier to, I think, be someone when you aren't changing so much. You know, I think
or you are changing. Like trees change. Trees change dramatically.
Well, I guess I just think about, like, let's say from when you're 12 years old to, let's say, to when you're 30. You know, there's a lot of change that happens there. And so I think I want to maybe even say easier for us as we grow older to be like, actually, kind of, these are my values. This is who I am. And because also that kind of, like, I feel like gives us more of an identity. Like if we're constantly changing, then like, who are we in a way? Like, sure, there's like subtle changes. I agree, Chris, but like if we're completely changing, like, oh, I'm for abortion, no, I'm against abortion. Oh, I'm pro guns. Oh, you know, like,
right.
Like what are our values? Because it's like we kind of like have to distill the sense of it all to, like, I think it's like some values. It actually like comes back to like, because otherwise I don't think we can believe something unless it's stable. It's just like a word. The word "the" means "the." So in terms of like, we can't believe a word or somebody, I think, in like has integrity. Like someone won't have integrity unless like they're solid. So I feel like
I love your tree metaphor. I mean, your analogy. Yeah. I would call it intentional growth, right? Like trees grow a certain direction and intentionally, right? Like they could grow all over the place if they wanted to. Like they could be, you know, like vines or something like that. Vines have, I don't know, vines just go everywhere, right? Like trees have intentional growth. Like you said, they're rooted. They have, you know, a plan and a direction, and they concentrate all that power, and then they grow long and strong and live forever and yada yada yada. You know, I think your tree metaphor is a great one when it comes to like the power of intentional growth, you know, versus the scattered growth all over.
That's scattered growth. Yeah. Right. I am going to uproot my tree here. Yeah, but sort of that intentional growth.
That's a good thought.
So any final thoughts?
No, that was good.
Was that? I mean, but that was just like, I mean, I don't know if you're going to talk about the book more, but like, I mean, that was just like the first section about the be impeccable with your word, but is that like you feel like what you got most out of it?
Yeah, so that's what I do with these. It's not necessarily like a recap of the book. It's what I learned most from the book.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it wasn't like there's rare books where I'll do like like a 5-part reflection or something along those lines. Of books that I learned a lot from that I wanted to document from. But with this particular book, I mean, this is the thing that sticks. This is what I like to call my memory palace. Like this is what I remember from this book, and this is what sticks, and this is what I wanted to matter about it. When we've gone back and read 7 Habits again or something along those lines. Yes, there was a lot of things in that book, and that's one of them that I wrote like a 5-part reflection for. But
Gotcha.
There's hidden gems, when you go back and read these books and stuff. And I'm sure if I went back and reread the 4 agreements or whatever, like I'm sure I would come up with another idea or thought or reflection or something that really stuck with me. But like this is a journey. It's like this, as I'm going, this is just what stuck at the time and what I decided I wanted to share with the world. So yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes
Sorry, True, go ahead.
I say sometimes, the lessons that we talk about has nothing to do with the book. It just happens to inspire us to say, you know what, this is what we learned because, by reading this book, it just sparks in our head about this lessons, and we want to talk about it, and we want to learn about it, and we want to put into practice. Like, today's word is about, okay, be careful with your word. How are you using it for good versus evil? Because sometimes, if you unintentionally put things out there that is not what you meant, you could cause harm to other people or cause misunderstanding and cause pain to the people who listens to them.
Yeah, I mean, think about if you wanted to become like a social media influencer or something like that, and you didn't have that rooted, intentional thought behind that, and you were just throwing out quote after quote every single day of like, Buddha, today it's Buddhism, and tomorrow it's this, and the next day it's that, and they're all over the place. People are, and for some reason, let's just say it caught on to other people, and then they're like, well, what are you doing? Do you actually, and you find out someday that they don't even practice, do any of this stuff, or actually live their life this way. You're like, well, this, the integrity is
yeah,
gone. Like,
it'll never credible.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like things are only like people are only as, I guess, influential as like they back up their word with their actions.
Right. Yeah.
Like when we end up like calling people out who like aren't like true to their word, because it's so much easier to be just
see, it's authentic versus hypocrisy. I can say anything, but if I don't follow it, then I'm just a liar.
Right.
I mean, but we're all hypocrites at some level. I mean, I think it's
for sure.
It's almost like, I mean, whether like we can change, let's say, because I think we do change, or we do change. I think we're all we all end up being hypocritical.
Here's the difference is when you have intentional growth or intentional whatever design, yes, you are going to find yourself being hypocritical every once in a while with your words, and then you correct it. Like you remember what the path is, and you go, I'm going to fix that because this is not aligning to what XYZ, right? Like to those values or whatever. That's the biggest difference is, to be impeccable with your word long term and to have that intentional growth. You're going to have branches that go the wrong direction, but eventually, you say, okay, like, where are we going? What is the purpose here? What are the values that you're anchored in? And then that's when you can,
yeah, because you can also, I mean, if you do think like yourself, like a tree growing out, like you find like one branch growing like one way, but like you can like, I mean, we're getting kind of like cutting that limb off, though. It's like, hey, no,
right.
That actually wasn't good,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but you have to have intentional thought and then intentional words behind it to be able to get you back to growing straight, I guess.
And sometimes you have misinformation, misinformation makes because, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that back then. For example, if I shine a light, an artificial light on a tree, it starts growing that way. And then suddenly after, a month or whatever, I took it away. Well, it's not going to go that way. It's going to follow the sun, right? So its intentional growth wasn't in the direct, like whatever the intentional growth was, right? That was the fake thing, right? So it's the misinformation that we get but at the same time, going back to the core, if it points to the sun or points to whatever that core value is, it's still going to be the correct way. Yes, you're going to have things where you say, well, I believed this back then because I only knew this and that, but I didn't know, the extra piece of information I know now that, it just changed the way I believe in things or the way I see things.
Yeah, because we do get new information and that can kind of change the way we think of things.
Adapt. Like, I mean, it allows you to morph as long as you're still going toward your purpose or values or something like that. You can add to it, you can grow, you can revise it, but like,
but that's the thing, like, I think that, like, I realize that I can struggle with it in terms of that intentionality, like that Jonathan Haidt book, Happiness Hypothesis, sort of your intentional brain and your elephant.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where I can get off course if I just like am like my elephant, I don't think is very intentional,
No.
Whether that can be like, like eating a bunch of snacks or yada yada, or just like doing things like kind of crazy. That's where like I can find it. The elephant isn't very intentional,
Actually, I'm gonna actually challenge you on that one. I think the elephant is super
intentional.
intelligent. Yeah,
Yes.
I think the writer isn't intentional.
Really?
Oh
yes,
yeah. No,
I think the opposite. I think the opposite, because your elephant only knows that one particular intention.
Yeah, he has
right?
one path.
And it does it until you tell him that, hey, that
But like I think of
intention-
myself like binge eating at night or whatever. Like I'm not like that's not like
right,
that's an
because
emotion,
it's-
but that's an emotional thing that you're doing with your writer.
because
you know,
that's
like,
its
that-
intention
that's
though. Its intention is when you eat, because it said, well, when you on this trigger, I'm going to eat, and that's intentional purpose of what.
that's true.
yeah.
It is very intentional. Yeah.
So the intent is basically what is it doing to get rid of the pain or whatever. It's going to do that because you triggered it, and so the conscious is going to be very I guess the most hypocritical, just because it changed all the time.
Yeah.
The elephant, they don't, unless you beat it up and say, hey, go left, right? And until you beat them enough, then it will change its intentions and it will continue to follow that. So that's in terms of creating habits. But the elephants are it has its own very directive. It follows that only, regardless whether it's bad for you or not, it will do it.
Yeah.
that was good. That was
I gotta run here.
Yeah.
Love the Monday 6 o'clock chat. So Chris, great to hear the books you're reading, and Trio, let's love the dialogue we have. So
Same
awesome.
here.
All right,
Yeah.
everyone.
All right.
Thanks for joining. And the question we can leave for y'all is, how can you use your words to promote some more good in this world? We'll see y'all tomorrow.
All right.